This is Greg, and this is Team Action Plan's end of quarter sprint video. So this quarter we had a very similar problem motivation as last quarter, which is that we're trying to build a platform that will help beginning web developers build their projects through action plans, and we will also help experts write plans for these learners quickly and efficiently. So to approach this problem, we did some need finding and had a couple of research questions. First, we were looking at how we can incorporate reusability into our process to um, decrease the time it takes to write a plan, and also um, how we can accommodate the different kinds of ways people write plans. But this came out of our research, looking into research about opportunistic planning, in which we found that people write plans in both top-down and bottom-up ways, meaning that some will write milestones, then subtasks, some will write them in a linear fashion, and some will jump around from milestone to milestone. So we had to find a way to accommodate all these different ways of writing plans. Um, so we I,
So our system has stayed fairly the same as last quarter, but we've done a couple big changes. We have the learner and expert view now split out into specific subsections. So the expert view, you now have this list that you can filter and search upon, and then also you see the current versus the potential versus the complete action plans. On the learner, we don't have any currently in the system, but if you had any action plans, they would show up here, and of course you can sort of request them using the form we had beforehand. The biggest changes came in the composer view. So beforehand, we just had a single form for composing action plans, whereas now we have three distinct modes that were designed to allow for top-down, bottom-up, and action plan composing. First off, we have the recipe picker. This, of course, shows users' requests, but also lets you choose from a set of recipes that could be used as a starting point for your action plan. So you can preview it, and then you'll get to see the various milestones in the subtask, and a description of what it specifically is designated to create. And then once you select it, all the milestones and subtasks will be copied into your action plan. Then on to take a more bottom-up approach, we created a thing called the milestone picker, and this allows you to search for action plans and then take the milestones that you find relevant for them and drag them into your action plan. So as you can see here, I've searched blog, and this pulls up all the relevant action plans and highlights the milestones that could be helpful for you. And you can click in to see the subtasks within each of these. If you find one you like, you can just simply drag it over, unfortunately it's broken right now, into your action plan. Following that, you can of course go back and compose and edit each milestone and subtask more specifically. Our tech has remained fairly the same. We just have separate submodules for each of these modes that enable each of these systems. And otherwise, the architecture stays the same. The recipes are within their own database. They're very similar to an action plan, except they just have a different top-level object. But they still have the same list of milestones, the same structure once you're past that.
And for Team Action Plans, here to talk a little bit about user tests and some feedback we got. So our first test was an expert test after we had created some recipes. We had experts look at requests for either Twitter, a blog, or Slack, and just choose a recipe that they thought best matched it. We told them that it shouldn't take very long, and to just basically look at the motivations. Some of our feedback we got from this was that these requests were too similar to our actual recipes, so it didn't quite test what we wanted. We also found out that we still need to flesh out the skills of the learner a little bit more. We want to make the basic functionality before any more details. Changing the milestone titles to user stories was a big one that we implemented later. And since recipes are so linear right now, it doesn't make sense for them to be able to rearrange them in the composer later. So after this test, we did another test on learners with these plans that the experts made. We thought that these action plans generated from recipes should be usable for learners. We found that we tested on about 3 or 4 learners, found again that we should phrase our milestone titles at user stories, and that the specificity of the milestones were pretty inconsistent, and that confused learners as well. Our next test was again an expert test. We created a lot more recipes, and this time we had them not edit subtasks at all, only change motivations. Again, we got some pretty similar feedback. A lot of the experts didn't really know if they were contributing quite as much as they wanted to. So lastly, after we implemented the milestone picker, we tested one more time with experts. We tested with Hyung-soon, Kevin, and Haochi. And our conclusion was that, well, there were some low-level things like adding feedback and putting the requests on the milestone picker page. But some things that we implemented were to add collapsible subtasks on the milestone picker, make this first search function work a little better, and add highlights, and to create a preview button before they submit the whole thing. So in conclusion, from our testing, we found that recipes do lower the speed quite a bit, but it makes the plans people are creating a little bit incoherent, kind of a mess. So later we need to work on improving the quality over the speed. Integration is the hardest part. Yeah.
Our current limitations are that despite the fact that experts can write plans a lot faster now, the quality of the plans has gone down. This is largely due to the fact that recipes already do a lot of the work for experts, and experts don't feel as obligated to put in as much detail. And because of that, the quality of the plan goes down, and experts don't feel like they're contributing as much value. In addition to this, users have asked or given feedback many times that they would like some discussion involved in action plans and possibly some revision done to alleviate certain problems. And also, we haven't had much time to do testing with learners in an end-to-end fashion, meaning that learners actually provide a request, that request is given to an expert, and then the learner is able to look at that, look at the plan generated for that request. So these are all things that we will be working on in the in next quarter. Other things we'll be working on in the fall are exploring other ways we can improve the quality of action plans that are generated in this fashion, how we can better match plans to experts by possibly fleshing out the skill profile more. We'll have to also look at some previous research on how to best match people based on their skill sets. And then we would like to integrate more discussion between the users, both learners and experts. And lastly, right now our composer is sort of segmented into the different features we've built. So even though the different features accommodate the different ways of composing plans, we'd like that to be all integrated into one cohesive flow so that it's not so much of the user jumping between these different methods, but using them all at the same time in a logical way.